to Welcome to Let Us Seek the Lord as we read through the scripture, taking a chapter or two every day. And it'll take us, then I give a little bit of a meditation on the glory of Jesus at the end of each chapter. Today I'm wearing my shepherd's robe in honor of today's reading. I notice it has no sleeves. That might make a little more sense here a little later on. But today we're reading in Genesis chapter 37, and we will, let's get with it, okay? Now, Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. Jacob, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Also, he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him. They couldn't speak peaceably to him. Now, Joseph had a dream. And in his dream, he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, "Please hear this dream which I have, and I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves out in the field. Then behold, my sheaf rose up and stood upright. And indeed, your sheaves bowed down to my sheaf." And his brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us, or shall you indeed have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed still another dream, and he told it to his brothers and said, "Look, I've dreamed another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to me." So he told it to his father and his brothers. And his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you've dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you?" And his brothers envied him. But his father kept this matter in mind. Then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. We remember last time we went to Shechem, they had killed a lot of the people there. This is several years later, though. And Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." So he said to them, "Here I am." Then he said to him, "Please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me." So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. Now a certain man found him, and there he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, saying, "Who are you seeking?" And so he said, "I'm seeking my brothers. Please tell me where they are, feeding their flocks." And the man said, "Oh, they've departed from here, for I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. Now, excuse me, when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. And they said to one another, "Look, this dreamer is coming. Come, therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit. And we shall say some wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what will become of this dreamer's dreams." But Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, "Oh, let's not kill him." And Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit, which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him." And Reuben said this so that he might deliver him out of their hands and bring him back to his father. So it came to pass, when Joseph had come to his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the tunic of many colors, that was on him. They took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat a meal, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and there was a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices and balm and myrrh on their way to carry them down to Egypt. So Judah said to his brothers, What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh." And his brothers listened. Then the Midianite traders passed by, and the brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt. Then Reuben returned to the pit, and indeed Joseph was not in the pit. And he tore his clothes and returned to his brothers and said, "The lad's no more, and where will I go?" And they took Joseph's tunic, killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the tunic in the blood. Then they sent the tunic of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, "We found this. Do you know whether it's your son's tunic or not?" He recognized it and said, "It is. It is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Without doubt, Joseph is torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his waist, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, "For I shall go down into the grave to my son in mourning." Therefore his father wept for him. Now the Midianites had sold him into Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. Joseph was Israel's last child to be born while working for Laban. It was seen that Joseph was born at the end of 14 years that Israel had worked for Laban in order to purchase his wives from Laban. Joseph then had 11 other siblings, 10 brothers and 1 sister. Reuben, the oldest, was probably around 13 years older than Joseph, and Israel had made it very apparent to everyone that Rachel was his favorite wife. And so Joseph, Rachel's firstborn, became Israel's favorite child. You know, I'm the youngest of 5 children. My siblings all swear that I was spoiled. I don't really know if any of them were jealous of me. They certainly didn't show it if they were. In a well-functioning family, the other children help with taking care of the younger children. Consequently, the firstborn usually demonstrates greater responsibility than others. The ones in the middle often feel left out because the little one gets all the attention. And the youngest is often deprived of learning the responsibility of taking care of a younger sibling. Joseph was at least 6 when the family fled from Grandpa Laban. And Reuben would have been around 19. And enough time had transpired between their fleeing of Laban and the rape of Dinah and the murder of the Shechemites that when Dinah was of the marrying age. In those days, Dinah might have been as young as 14 when she was raped. Dinah was closest in age to Joseph. In the event of Joseph's brothers selling him into slavery was perhaps 3 years after the rape of Dinah. The text tells us that he was 17 when this happened. Israel had already done everything to communicate that Joseph is his favorite. It was obvious that Rachel was his favorite wife. By the way, from the creation of Adam and Eve, God never intended for a person to have more than one spouse. He did not create Adam and Eve and Susan, nor did he create Adam and Steve and Eve. Therefore, it can only be the extreme mercy of the Lord that he puts up with this whole sordid mess that Jacob is in. When Esau was on his way with 400 soldiers to meet Israel, what does he do? What does Jacob do? Israel do? He arranges his family in order of his favorites. His least favorites were sent out first to meet Esau. And he kept Rachel and Joseph till last. The implication is that he'll sacrifice those who are farthest in front to save those who are behind, and finally himself. What a courageous man, huh? Then, later on, he makes a special coat for Joseph. A few linguists have suggested that this word for coat of many colors should be translated a coat with long sleeves. The implication is that the workers would have a coat with short sleeves or no sleeves, in order that the sleeves might not get in the way of the manual labor. A coat with sleeves or long sleeves would indicate a coat for somebody who was in a managerial position. Thus, Israel would have been making Joseph their boss. One can only imagine how this could have inflamed the jealousies of his brothers. Well, whether or not it should be translated a coat of many colors or a coat with sleeves, I'm really not sure. But I am sure that the coat communicated volumes to everyone in the family that Joseph was Israel's favorite. We know that Rachel died in childbirth to Benjamin when Joseph was around 14. We might assume the loss of Rachel may have increased Israel's favoritism. If I didn't already know the end of the story, I would see very little of the glory of Jesus in this. But we'll get to the end of this story several chapters from now. But I do know the end, and you probably know it as well. First, we have what would appear on the surface a very snooty little brother with some kind of leadership delusions. Second, we have the envious older brothers who cannot stand the sight of their younger brother because he's their father's favorite and flaunts it in their face with his dreams that he tells them about. Third, we have a very dysfunctional household because we had 4 women who were all essentially married to the same man at the same time, living in the same household, and that's a recipe for disaster in any culture. So where's the glory in this? Somehow Joseph learns to know that God is with him. Do you suppose, being Israel's favorite, that he conversed with his father concerning the Lord's appearances to him and concerning what it meant to have God with you? Do you suppose he grasped the message of learning to wait for the blessing of the Lord rather than trying to force it to happen? How do you suppose sharing his dreams with his brothers and parents fits into that concept? Perhaps sitting in the pit, waiting to be sold as a slave by his brothers, he had time to dwell on that concept. What pit are you sitting in? Maybe in your pit, you don't deserve your situation. Maybe in your pit, you do deserve your situation. Either way, is God with you? It is the glory of the Lord that he takes our pits and turns them into his glory. So if you're in the pits, how can you see God's glory in this? How and when do you suppose he will do that with you? It was many years before Joseph got out of those pits. But he did. Because that's the glory of our Lord. He takes our pits and he shows it and makes it into his extreme glory. Indeed, we serve a glorious King. Speak his glory to someone today.